It's Wednesday, June 12th, 2019. I received a comment this morning and somebody said, JB, you need to be more positive. So I'm going to start the show out today with a positive, well, at least somewhat positive. But this one you might find a little bit more positive. It's regarding Venezuela's inflation. Their annual inflation has dropped below 1 million% in May for the first time since 2018. So, I mean, that's some good news, right? May inflation was only 815,194%. That's a drop from 1.3 million%. Prices were up 906% in the first 5 months of this year. So at least they're getting a drop in inflation, so that's the good news. But the reality of this is all this inflation is a result of a dysfunctional system and currency controls, currency manipulation, currency money printing, along with nationalizing several large businesses. Now ask yourself this, does this sound familiar? When you read an article like that, it is another reminder that no matter what you're watching on TV, no matter what the news, no matter what the business analysts are telling you, the government, your friends, never become complacent. There is so much happening right now in America. This would be the worst time to ever become complacent with so many things happening that are going to affect you and your loved ones, no matter how much you think it's not going to. What is happening right now in this financial system is going to affect each and every one of us. Here's an article on Zero Hedge today. U.S. government spending soars to all-time high as deficit hits record for month of May. I'm going to go over this real quick with you. Again, these are reasons why we cannot be complacent. U.S. budget deficit for the month of May was $208 billion. Last May, it was $147 billion. So look at this increase. It's huge. Budget deficit for the first 8 months of the fiscal year is $738.6 billion. That's a 38.8% increase, higher than the $532 billion at the same time last year. Interest payments on the U.S. Treasury debt hit $354 billion. That's just the interest that we've paid so far this year on our debt. That's up $46 billion from last year, 11% increase. So these people who just want to hear positive stories, people that believe this is doom and gloom, this is another fact. This is the latest statistic that I'm reading to you that just came out today. How do we survive as a nation when we have deficits that are absolutely blown out of control, off the rails? Just servicing this debt alone would literally wipe out most countries. How do we keep going? How do we survive this as every year the deficits get bigger, the service of the debt gets bigger? How are we going to manage this down the road? How long can we continue to do this before things fall apart? I was reading the news yesterday and I came across a couple articles and they talked about how inflation slowed in the month of May, and I just completely disagree with that. And I think most of you can relate to that. The people out there watching this who cannot, you need to ask yourself a few questions. Explain to me how every time I go to the grocery store, the price of food continues to go up. You know, I was at the grocery store yesterday and they used to sell these individual cakes in the bakery goods area. And, 2 years ago, they were, 2 to 3 years ago, somewhere in that vicinity, they were $1.50. 2.5 years later, they're $3. So that is 100% increase within 2 years, 2.5 years. People's wages aren't going up 100%. People are experiencing very stagnant wages. Yet we're seeing food prices going up 100% in 2 years, or not everything's gone up 100% food-wise in 2 years, but I'm just using that piece of cake as an example. 3 or 4 years ago, I'd go to McDonald's, get an iced coffee, large iced coffee. It was 99 cents. Today, it's $3. So over the time frame of 3 to 4 years, where it started out at 99 cents and is now $3, that's a 300% increase on a cup of coffee in 3 to 4 years. And so whether you're talking about a loaf of bread, a pound of hamburger meat, steak, chicken, a box of cereal. And remember, when you go and you buy a box of cereal or you buy some of these products, you're getting less in the box. You're paying twice as much as you did a couple years ago for the same box of cereal, but it's half full, and the quality is completely different than the quality of food you were buying a few years ago. The quality has gone way down. The volume has gone way down, yet the box stays the same and the price goes up. And I think most of you can relate to that. Go into a grocery store today and then go back in next month and start reviewing some of those same items. And I promise you, most of them will have already gone up over a month or two. Take a look at car prices, home prices, take a look at rent, take a look at what it costs to buy a bar of soap, what it costs to go to a store, a retail store, go buy a shirt, go buy a tie, go buy a pair of shoes. Is any of this less expensive than it was last year? No, these things continue to skyrocket while people's wages remain stagnant. I read an article on CNBC this morning, and it was talking about how so many Americans are taking on a side hustle. And what a side hustle is an extra job. It's a part-time job. And how many Americans have got to take on a part-time job in order to make ends meet. They're saying 1/3 of Americans, and other sites regarding the same story are actually saying 50%. So somewhere between 30 and 50% of Americans, depending on what news source you are reading this at, 30 to 50% of Americans are taking on a side hustle, an additional job, an additional part-time job in order to make ends meet. And we are now in a country where 80% of this country is living paycheck to paycheck. Yet people will comment to me and tell me that, don't be negative, this is doom and gloom, etc. Yet I'm living in a country now where 80% of America is living paycheck to paycheck, 30 to 50% of America is having to take on a side hustle in order to make ends meet and still living paycheck to paycheck. Yet we shouldn't be alarmed, we shouldn't be disturbed, we should just go back into fantasy land and live our lives in denial and just hope nothing bad happens. Again, ladies and gentlemen, do not become complacent. You don't want to be one of those people who thinks that living paycheck to paycheck is okay, living with 5 credit cards maxed out, relying, as 25% of Americans now do, relying on credit cards to eat, to pay your rent, to pay your bills. You don't want to be one of these people. We must avoid doing this at all costs. You do not want to be a debt slave. Do everything you have to do in order to avoid being a debt slave. Do not be one of these people. These are the same people, as I've said before, that talk this baloney, who themselves are one paycheck away from being homeless. Yet they'll call us a conspiracy theorist or a doom and gloomer. But yet these are the people living paycheck to paycheck. As intelligent people, we cannot be complacent knowing that the government is taxing the hell out of its citizens, that we are becoming debt slaves, that the middle class is being decimated. We cannot be complacent knowing that 30 to 50% of this country has to work a side hustle to make ends meet. Let me tell you, in a strong economy, 30 to 50% of a population should not be working a part-time job in order to make ends meet. Yet we're being told that there's no inflation. But tell me why I see on a daily basis numerous people in their cars with Lyft and Uber stickers, because so many people now have to be Lyft and Uber drivers. They're now modern day taxi cab drivers just to get by, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck. They're squeaking by, working their job over here and then having to work 12 hours over here for Uber or Lyft just to get by, just to make ends meet, just to put shoes on their kids' feet and to make sure that their kids get 3 square meals a day. This is not the sign of a strong economy. This is not the America I grew up in. This is not the America that I know. There is something drastically wrong here in America. We are broke. We're bankrupt. We're running a near $1 trillion deficit this year. Okay, we have so many problems, and one of the biggest ones is people's wages, people's incomes, people's standard of living, people's class of living. The middle class is being decimated. Wow. We now have people from all over the world coming to America that you're going to be paying for. And now Africa is joining the club. We have thousands and thousands of people coming from Africa. Hopefully, we don't have an Ebola outbreak here in America like they're talking about, detaining people now at the Texas border, being checked for Ebola, showing signs of Ebola. How many people made it in here that we have no idea who they are, where they're from? How many people from Africa, Ebola-ridden parts of Africa, who just walked in here, walking around right now, passing you by in public from Africa and parts of Africa that are ridden with Ebola, now walking on U.S. soil, yet nobody's concerned about that. Let's be complacent. Let's not talk about it. That's negative. Let's not get people scared. That's doom and gloom. We don't want to know anything about Ebola or criminals coming over the border or anything like that. Let's just let's watch cartoons, smoke some dope, maybe go to a baseball game, and just pretend that nothing bad is going to happen. But back to the real world. This is what's happening, and this is what could happen. Impeachment. Jim Rickard says it won't happen. I believe it won't, but it's going to be a damaging show. It will continue to gain momentum. It's going to continue to divide America. It's going to continue to tarnish the reputation of this president, and it will finally come to a head this fall. But it's going to continue to leave uncertainty in the markets. Number 2, 2020 election. He says Donald Trump will be elected. I believe he will be also. Now, there is a black swan here, and we have very, very evil people in very dark places that could create serious financial panic in the markets. We could go into a full-blown recession or depression before 2020. And this would hurt the president of the United States of America immensely. So if they were able to sabotage this economy or sabotage the markets, this president would have big trouble. And it could send America spiraling out of control. Another reason why you better be prepared, because you don't know what you're going to wake up to tomorrow. Number 3, and this is the most concerning of all, Spygate. What happens when this president moves from defense to offense, when the real investigations begin? This is where I believe America is going to be in shock and awe when they find out the crimes that have been committed by their politicians, by people that they've trusted, by people in the media. What happens when the American people find out what's really been going on? How dirty our highest offices of law enforcement are, how people in high political places of power committed treason. This will have a cataclysmic effect on the stock market. It's going to devastate the markets. And I believe that this president is doing everything he can to hold this off. But at some point, he's no longer going to be able to hold it off. And this will have devastating effects on the country as a whole, socially, politically, and economically. So I'm going to wrap this video up today. Before I do, there was another person that commented earlier today, and she said that The average American is living paycheck to paycheck. The average American doesn't even have $1,000 saved up. No, the average American doesn't even have $400 saved up. So let me correct you there. But she goes on to say, how do we prepare basically when we are broke as a people? And all I can say is this. We have to stop blaming other people. We have to stop blaming the government for everything. We have to take some responsibility for ourselves. And one of my answers to this question is this. Stop going to Starbucks and buying $7 coffees. That would be a good start. Maybe, I had a little list here. Maybe you stop spending $10, $12, $15 on a movie ticket. That's a thought. Maybe you stop going to sporting events, baseball, football, basketball games. A lot of people drop $100 just for a ticket, $25 for parking, $25, $35, $45 for beer and hot dogs. It becomes a very expensive day. So maybe you need to stop going to some of these events. Maybe you need to stop driving a car that has a specific emblem on it to impress people that you don't even know, people you don't like. Maybe you need to, downgrade your way of life a little bit. So maybe you don't need to lease that Mercedes or that BMW. Maybe you don't need to go out and buy a new car. Too many of us are making excuses that we're just too broke. But if we started cutting out some of the stuff that we don't need, and look, I see a lot of these people on Facebook showing me their $15, $20 cocktail that they just had at Mastro's last night. But yet these people are buying cocktails on credit cards, okay? They're using their credit cards to make a car payment, to go to the grocery store. These are the same people going to Mastro's and posting a picture for me to see while they're having a $15 cocktail. Yet they're living paycheck to paycheck. Do you need to go to Starbucks 5 times a week? Start cutting that out, and you might be able to put some cash away. Maybe you do need to go work a little side hustle. Take that money, go buy some precious metals, have some assets on hand, have a emergency fund put away, 3 to 6 month emergency fund. We have to stop making excuses. Maybe you need to start changing your lifestyle a little bit and start cutting some things out. It's called sacrifice. And we can all cut something out, save that money, and put it into something more productive. And again, remember, stop giving your money to these sporting groups because they don't like you. Stop giving money to Hollywood because they despise you. Cut the money out and start using it in a more productive way. Start saving it. Start putting it into real tangible assets. Listen, we are in dire times here as a nation. I just read multiple articles to you that are not positive, okay? There is not much positive news. One positive thing is we're still here and we have the ability yet to change this country if we all come together. So that is positive. We're here breathing, walking. It's a beautiful sunny day out, and I'm blessed to be alive. I'm blessed to be able to talk to each and every one of you and be in the fight. We need to start putting some skin in the game and all getting involved. These are incredible times. They're exciting. They're dangerous at the same time, but we're here, and we're here for a reason. And these are going to be biblical, historical times and events coming to America, and we're all going to witness it happen. Again, I'm blessed to be part of this. I'm blessed to talk with every one of you on a daily basis, and thank you so much for taking your valuable time and spending a little bit with me. And we must continue to pray for this country. So, the positive side is we have God on our side, and we still live in the greatest country in the world that can still be saved if we get off our butts, we get in the fight, we get involved, and we make change. God bless every one of you, and God bless America.